Sony full frame users, I think y'all forgot just how good the 24-105 f4G OSS is. Yo, let me show you. Full frame users, I think y'all forgot just how good the 24-105 f4 is. Not Sony's latest full-frame lens that's huge that you can travel with, that can cover everything from 24 to 105. All of that stuff is kind of number six. I prefer f2.8 lenses. However, when it comes to a lens like this, there are compromises that can be made. This is a lens that you still need to this day give serious consideration. What's up, y'all? Tight Shirt Terry Warfield back in the building. I hope you're having a fantastic day. I'm having a great day so far. Let's cut right into the meat potatoes, yo. The Sony 24-105 f4G OSS, the relic. Full transparency, Sony did sponsor this video. I mean, what y'all expect me to do? I got to keep the lights on. I got to feed the babies. Y'all know I just lost my job, but they did sponsor this video. But one thing you can always trust from me is that my opinions and everything are mine. Sony did get a chance to review this video before it went live. However, they did not ask me to say anything in particular. They did not say you can't say anything negative about the lens or whatever. So always trust that on this channel, that my opinions are my opinions and that they can't be bought. But big shout out to Sony for sponsoring this video. I appreciate y'all so much. So if you need like an all-in-one lens for your Sony full frame camera, and you don't want to spend a whole ton of money, and you don't want a lens that's huge that you can travel with, that can cover everything from 24 to 105, all of that stuff in between, this is a lens that you still need to this day give serious consideration. And I'm going to get into all the details of why I think you should. So let's start with build quality first. Let me put all the specs on the screen for you spec lovers. Are you finished? Are you done? Okay, good. So as you see right here, I got the 24-105G mounted on the Sony A7 IV, baby. And I love the way this combo looks. I know a lot of people are not into like the aesthetics of lenses, but I love how this lens looks mounted on full frame camera. So let's have a walk around real quick. 24-105. On the side, you do see an autofocus, manual focus switch. Also your steady shot switch, which we will talk about that later on in this video. And you have your typical multi-function button on the side. As you can also see, the barrel does extend when you are zooming in. So it does extend quite a bit, as you can kind of see it right here. This is all the way extended. This is not extended at all, but I really love how compact and lightweight this lens is. It's really easy to fly on the gimbal, and it does have a 77mm filter thread. The barrel is nicely dampened. The focus ring is also a little sticky on mine, but I don't really use manual focus that much. But if I did have to, I would like this to be just a tad smoother. But overall, we know what to expect when it comes to quality. Now that we got that out the way, the price does come in at about $1,000 to about $1,300. It just depends on where you shop at. Now the next thing I want to touch on real quick is autofocus. Let me just be honest, this does not have Sony's latest and greatest autofocus system in here. This is still using the older supersonic motor setup, so SSM technology. I use this lens over the past couple days shooting a lot of my stepson's sports, taking pictures and stuff around the house. And the way I rate autofocus may not be the same as everybody else. I look for three things. Does it focus reliably? Is it in my way? And does it cause me problems? I have not noticed any difference in my use case from any other lenses that I have. And I have a bunch of other lenses. This one is able to keep up with the rest of them. So take that for what it's worth. Lastly, before we move forward, I really like how close you can get with this lens. You can get right up on stuff and take a picture. I mean, it's not macro, but I do love lenses that can focus close, and this is one of them. The next thing I want to touch on before we move on to stabilization and image quality is the whole f2.8 versus f4 thing. A lot of people are going to tell you do not buy an f4 lens, and to be honest, I prefer f2.8 lenses. However, when it comes to a lens like this, there are compromises that need to be made, and unfortunately f2.8 versus f4 is one of them. If you wanted a lens that was able to go from 24 to 105 with a constant f2.8 aperture and still give you things like G-coding, stabilization, weather sealing, great autofocus, that huge focal range, yo, you will be looking at a $10,000 lens. I'm just being honest. So with this lens, I feel like what it offers to me is worth the trade-off in f2.8 versus f4. Now, how does that equate to real world use? You're talking about like a one-stop advantage when it comes to light transmission. So that's the difference between like ISO 1000 and ISO 2000. So it's not a huge difference, but it is a difference. But I think you can work around it, and I think the trade-offs, like having stabilization, having this huge focal range, and a small compact lens that's not like a football field long, I think it's worth it. The other thing that y'all gotta realize is when it comes to depth of field on a full frame camera, f2.8 to f4, even at a wide focal length, can still get you some respectable depth of field. And at 105, anything can get you depth of field, even if you're at like f5.6 or f8. So don't let f4 scare you away. Now, the next thing I want to touch on is stabilization real quick, because that is a huge thing that I keep mentioning throughout this video. Stabilization in the lens is absolutely clutch. Okay, so stabilization in the lens, as you see, is very, very useful, especially when it comes to using like a camera with active stabilization, right? Like the Sony a7 IV, the Sony a7S III, FX3, using the stabilization in camera, in lens, plus that it gives you some super smooth, almost gimbal-like shots. But what I'm more so interested in is just the ability for it to smooth out more of those micro jitters and stuff like that, in addition to the camera stabilization, without needing to use active, so that you don't go into that additional crop when you need to vlog or something like that. For people that do photography, OSS built into the lens and camera is even more appealing, because that means you can slow your shutter down even further and still get crispy shots, which is game changing. To be fair, there aren't many zoom lenses out there for E-mount that do have stabilization built into them. This is one of them. I'm just throwing that out there. All right, the next thing is image quality. Now, I got my MacBook Pro open, so we're gonna go over some photos, but for video, I found that the video quality out of this is fantastic. I filmed that whole intro sequence with just the Sony 24-105 f4G, and I had it on the gimbal. Hey, it looks fantastic. The image quality looks great. I got some images loaded up right here in Lightroom that I took with this lens, and I have Lightroom's automatic profile correction stuff turned off, so you can see the actual characteristics of the lens. Now, I'm not one of those pixel peepers. I'm only doing this for y'all. Typically, as long as the photo or video looks good to me, it's sharp, the background area is clean and all that stuff, I'm happy. So let's go through some of these photos. This was taken at f4. If we zoom in, you can see that plenty of detail right there. This was f4 at 105 millimeters. Now, I pulled up these two images right here because a lot of times, even with G lenses and their nano AR coating, which does work very well, this lens does have the nano AR technology coating on the front. Even with trees like this shooting into like backlight, you are going to get some purple fringing, and this is a classic example of, although it is there, this is not something that you wouldn't be able to remove in post. And this is also extreme. This was one of the only pictures where I saw a whole lot of purple fringing and all that good stuff. This is a regular picture of just a coffee mug on my counter. This was at 105 millimeter f4, ISO 800, nice and sharp, a lot of detail there. If we punch in on the letters, the bokeh area looks really good, really pleasing. Another picture I just shot around the house. This was ISO 2500 f4, and there's detail enough on the focus point, although it is a bit mushy because it was underexposed. But anyways, here's another photo. This was at ISO 8000 and f4, 63 millimeters. Still a lot of detail in here. I mean, you can see everything besides the noise. It's no problem. And you do have some slight fringing like around here, but you know, that's to be expected when we're pushing ISOs and stuff like that this high against something with strong backlighting, right? So next picture, again, bokeh looks good. This is ISO 8000 105 millimeter. Another one, ISO 10,000 105 millimeter. Still a ton of detail. If you look past the noise, look at that. Still a lot of detail left. These were some pictures of Deuce when he was at his game the other day. He did get busted in the eye, so his eye's a little bit swollen. And again, this lens is not the absolute sharpest lens out there for a zoom lens, but it is acceptably sharp for most scenarios. And remember, this is a huge zoom range that we're talking about. Now, here's some photos I took outside. This was at 105 millimeter at f4. There's a ton of detail up here. If we punch in up here, look at this. There's a ton of detail. This looks great. I took the same photo at f5 to see if there's a huge difference when it comes to, like, you know, sharpness and stuff like that. It looks pretty much the same. Here's a photo I took of just the street. If we punch in, there's still a lot of detail in the grass. So this is another picture. This was at f4, 105 millimeter. Plenty of detail in here, although a little bit noisy because your boy underexposed a little bit. This is what I really want to show you right here. So how does this lens handle like vignette and chromatic aberration on reflective surfaces? I do this test a lot in my videos. And again, I have all background corrections turned off. So right now you see the vignetting on the outside. If I were to just enable profile corrections real quick, I'm going to turn it on. It does disappear, right? If we punch in over here, all the way in, to the Sony satellite right on top, there isn't a whole lot of fringing as you would expect from some lenses out here. Now, I am pushing the limits of 33 megapixels, but there's not a whole lot going on. If we move over to f5.6, you can see the vignette is still there. It's not any better or any worse than f4 is, which is actually pretty surprising to me. But if we enable profile corrections, that switches right up. And this is actually pretty decent for 24 millimeters. If we go to 105, there was a bird flying through the air. That's what you see right here. But same thing, 105, there's a lot of detail left right here and really no fringing. And then lastly, I want to show you some portrait examples of my lovely wife. This is at 105 f4, ISO 1000. Plenty of detail around the eye. If we move over to one of the photos at 46 millimeter, let's punch in right here at f4. It did nail focus right here. And here's some samples from the side at 46 millimeter. It's a lot of detail. You can see her pores, you can see her eye. Same thing here. There's a lot of detail. You can see all of the individual eyelashes and all that stuff. But I do want to bring some attention real quick to the out of focus areas of how good it looks on this lens. So this is at 105 millimeters. So this is really good for this lens because above like 70 millimeters, even at f4, you got a bomb portrait lens and it just melts the background away. So super pleasing when it comes to portraits and stuff like that. All in all, I think at this point you can kind of see that for that travel lens, for that all-in-one lens that a lot of you guys and gals are looking for your one lens solution for your Sony full frame camera, I really think you need to give this lens some consideration. It is one of those lenses where it's not necessarily perfect at one thing, but it's really good at a whole lot of things. And although it has been out a few years, even with all the competition out there, all the different lenses that Sony offers, all the different third-party lenses out there, you will still be hard-pressed to find a lens this compact, that has this good of image quality, that has respectable autofocus, that has optical steady shot built into it with a 24-105 focal range at f4, that's weather sealed and all that stuff. You will be very hard pressed to still to this day find a lens like it, and I really think you should give it some consideration. So I'm losing my voice, so I will see y'all in the next video. Piece of chicken grease. I'm out. Terry Warfield. Peace.